The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Friday.
It's the end of the week.
Yeah, well, it's
Can I get my baguettes from you? Or do I gotta...
on the Champs-Elysees, the wine country that, I mean...
He went to Bordeaux?
They're going, yeah, well, look, they're going for it, look. And who is sponsoring this? Somebody that's trying to sell stuff. And... You know, this is the height of absurdity. You know, we're going to talk about, an intricate transportation system in Fall River when we're supposedly getting a commuter rail. What intricate? This is the United States.
Well, the company that's sponsoring this is making the commuter rail trains.
Yeah, and they're from France, but they have an
office in Boston.
In Boston, yeah. But the reality is, look, this is all crap. This is just another excuse for a politician. And like Marc said again, hey, most of these politicians, they get to the Azores 4 or 5 times a year. Leave it to our guy who, remember, his mentor was the guy that stayed in the Ritz-Carlton. He ends up in France, touring the wine country. And look, people, I don't know if you've ever been to Europe, but I was stationed there. Look, the transportation systems in Europe, you'll never duplicate in the United States because the United States, number one, is a completely different country. Gas 30 years ago in Europe was $7 or $8 a gallon. They ride bicycles, they ride motor scooters, they have a tremendous train system throughout Europe. They even have murders, like on the Orient Express. And you can write books about them. But they do. They have sophisticated transportation systems in Europe. But they're not applicable to the United States. People don't, you can't go, you can go to any place. You go to Paris, there's 1 million bicycles, there's 1 million motor scooters. People don't want to pay $9 or $10 a gallon. They only use a car when it's a necessity. They use subways, they use trains, because of a financial necessity. The United States is not like that. Everybody's got a car. Even people with no money have a car, and they drive everywhere. It'd take 25 years and $100 billion to even come close in this area in New England to duplicate Europe, and it doesn't work because it's a different country. Different kind of people are different. They're not gonna drive to the corner store.
I'll guarantee you, if our gas was $9 a gallon, we'd.
But yeah, look, I'm not giving them. Look, they got a great system. Why?
Oh no, they do.
Because you know the old adage, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
Well, in Europe, many years ago, because their wages and incomes are far lower than they are in the United States. Years ago, they were paying $7 or $8 a gallon 30 years ago in Europe for gas. So obviously, they're going to have a completely different transportation model. But look, let's call this what it is. The boy wonder found another place to go on the public dole. Like all the congressmen go and they get golf trips and this so they can lobby for something. He figured out a way to get himself a free trip to France. Not everybody can do that. You know, most of the other politicians have to settle for the Azores. But leave it to our boy to go through the wine country and they even had a list of where he went.
He went to Bordeaux, which is wine country. Yeah. Lyons and Paris.
Yeah, Lyons. All wonderful.
Beautiful tourist locations.
Oh, yeah. Look, I mean, it costs you a lot of money to go over there unless somebody else is paying. And even if he says he paid it out of his own pocket, what pockets? You know, his pocket is lined with your money, taxpayer money. He never had a real job in his life. And that's the reality. He never earned a dollar working in a mill or working somewhere where he had to work for a wage in his life.
Well, that's not true. He did work for Nordstrom. He did work for Nordstrom.
Oh, well, yeah. For how long?
He was selling shirts or something. I don't know what.
Selling shirts? Okay, all right. Okay. He had one part-time...
And that was during his time at Providence College.
Yeah, so it was a part-time job, and I'm sure that he was a tireless employee.
Yeah,
you know, forgive me.
And while he was at Providence College, he was also running his scams. You know those entrepreneurial companies that never made a dime?
Yeah, and I like, you know, Marc again coined another phrase I like the concrete building of bad ideas. He's got another one. He's given him a new title, Universal Mayor. Jazel Carrere.
Yeah, right.
Is in France, baguettes, croissants, vin rouge, and coq au vin. Beautiful, huh? It's like, you know, Marc does a pretty good job again on this, because look, you got to be satirical to stop from crying. I mean, this is unbelievable. And as he said in the article, there he was only a week ago talking about, oh, how are the poor people going to pay their bills that got laid off from Phillips, while he's given everybody $20,000 pay raises for doing actually less, and we'll get into that later. But the reality is, now that he's in France, and he's toured France when he comes back, he can say, and say it with real conviction, because he's visited the place where it originated, let them eat cake.
That's right. Marie Antoinette.
That's it.
A quote that shall not be forgotten.
That's right. Let them eat cake. They have no food, let them eat cake.
Well, something we didn't get to on Wednesday's show is the fact that the Fall River City Council voted to cover a $20,000 outside legal bill. All right?
And why?
Now understand this. They paid this for labor negotiations, for contract negotiations, because Joe Macy couldn't do it. But wait a minute. Joe Macy was a school committee corporate counsel, and all he did there was doing labor negotiations.
Yeah.
So did his mind lose that? I mean, did Alzheimer's set in and it just took that part of his brain away?
No, because the best kept secret in the world, even though we remind people all the time, is that Joe Macy is a part-time employee by law. He can't be a full-time employee, otherwise he's going to lose most of his pension. So since he's a part-time employee and he doesn't have time to do anything, all part-time employees get $20,000 a year raises, don't they? Oh, wait a minute. Most part-time employees don't make $20,000 a year, let alone get a $20,000 raise. So is there something rotten in the state of the Riv? Yeah, absolutely. There is definitely a tale of two cities. You know, it was the best of times and the worst of times. And it's the best of times for the politically connected hacks with their jobs and their giant pay raises. And one of the other articles said, the arbitrator, when they talked about it, they called Fall River economically poor. But yet, economically poor for everybody except somebody who's a political appointee or in a political hack job. They get $20,000 and $40,000 pay raises, while there are people who are working in City Hall for over 20 years that qualify for heating assistance and food stamps. So that's a travesty, and you know, it's just like I said, it boggles my mind, and I know that people were calling the local radio station complaining about the budget, you know, but that's why they have all this money. You keep these clowns in. You don't vote them out. The city council continues to approve it. They should have said, let Joe Macy pay it out of his pocket. You know? So you wanted to hire it out. You had the ability to do the job. So why don't you call him in front of the council and say, Attorney Macy, because of your part-time status and you don't have the time to do anything, even though we know you go on vacation too, maybe you should resign from the job, and maybe for 100, and what's his salary now?
115, I think.
$115,000.
Or 105, excuse me, 105.
All right, 105. So it's six figures. Maybe we could get a full-time attorney.
I'm sure we could for a lot less.
You know, absolutely. I'm obviously I'm being facetious when I say maybe we could. Absolutely, we could. We could get a full-time attorney that would put in no limit on hours. I mean, he could put in a ton of time, have enough time, but that's one of the problems historically. The city of Fall River has a law department, and any time there's any heavy lifting to do, the law department subcontracts it out to some other law firm, normally somebody who is friendly to them, and they
Marty Ladera.
yeah, or whatever, whoever. There's, you know, the cast of characters changes from year to year, from administration to administration, but historically, the city of Fall River doesn't do any of the heavy. Go all the way back to remember the infamous issue when they contracted out the what was it? You looked it up on your phone.
Oh, Dominion.
Dominion, yeah, the Dominion issue. And they actually subcontracted some of that work out, and then we ultimately lost an appeal and paid more. So this is this is another hidden cost for you, the people of Fall River. Why aren't you calling the city council up and melting their phones, asking them why they're allowing the law department not to do the legal work for the city of Fall River? If they have to contract everything out, obviously, we have to do one of two things. We have to get a new law department that'll put in the time, or we have to eliminate the law department and just hire attorneys and firms on contingency.
Yeah.
I mean, again,
sad part about it is the way this was done circumvented the city council.
Sure.
The bill was incurred before the city council approved the finances.
And guess what? As far as I'm concerned, if I was sitting in one of those 9 chairs, I would have told them, you did this without asking me for the money. I'm not going to give it to you.
And I'm not going to pay for it. Exactly.
You pay for it.
Right. But see, our city council has no backbone.
Oh, no, because remember, it's all, we have to. Everything we have to.
Well, that's what Kathy Evaveris said.
Yeah.
Kathy Evaveris said, oh, well, the bill's already been incurred. We have to pay it.
No, you don't.
We don't have to do anything except breathe and drop dead. That's it.
Right.
Those are the 2 things we have to do.
Yeah, and raise taxes.
And raise taxes. We got 3 things. That's right.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's crazy. Outside legal bill that was incurred for what? Like I said, why do we have a law department? And then they just hire somebody else in the law department.
Yeah, I believe so.
So it keeps getting bigger. We keep getting salaries, and they keep doing less work because they say that they got too much work. Well, what work are you doing, Joe? Are we paying you $105,000 to review pothole claims?
That's what he does.
Really?
Basically.
Really? Is that what we're paying you $105,000 for? And to go in front of the city council with your ridiculous opinions that say, oh, the charter doesn't mean anything and it's discretionary until you take me to court, because I know it really isn't discretionary. But I'm going to say that anyway, because, and then tell you, I'll give you not the first couple fingers, but I'll give you one of those fingers and tell you, go spend, if you're willing to spend your money on principle and bankrupt yourself just to prove it, or otherwise just let us do it, because that's why you can't fight City Hall, because you can't afford to, because they're fighting you with your money, and then you have to pay more of your money to overturn their ridiculous opinions. And this is just, look, this is, I mean, we've gone from the ridiculous to the sublime now. I mean, now, you know, bad enough, you know, go to the Azores with the rest of them, with the reps and the senators. God, you had to go to Paris to rub everybody's nose in it. Really, Jazel? And then you're going to tell us how you, oh, what's the other article now? He's going to touting possible transportation advancements. So what are we going to do? I got a good one for you. A lot cheaper, too. The Fall River Rickshaw Company. They're a lot cheaper.
And they don't need licenses.
They don't need licenses. Well, they'll probably pass an ordinance right after we have a company. But look, I mean, it's going to be another press conference where he's going to talk about how much he's learned and how much, and all his grandiose ideas like the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and a parking garage, which never materialized, and all these other things down the line. Look, we're lucky if we get a commuter rail. And remember one thing about transportation systems. unless you fix Fall River and its economy, transportation systems will be used by people to leave Fall River, not to come to it. So how much transportation, what are we going to put, a subway in Fall River?
No,
I mean,
intermodal depots.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, well, you know, I mean, you know, you've got taxis, you've got buses, you've got, what else are you going to do?
Uber, Lyft.
We got Uber, so, but you got to go to Paris, like I said. Apparently, I don't know if you've ever been to Europe before, Jaisal, but when you get there, look around. Number one, they don't have round doorknobs in Europe. They have 220 electricity, and gas has been 3 times what it is and 4 times what it is in the United States for the past 30 years. Necessity. They didn't create those transportation systems for anything else except it was an absolute necessity because people could not, they couldn't work. They couldn't go to work. They couldn't travel because their wages are far less than ours, and the gas is astronomical. People in Europe just don't go out for a Sunday drive. They don't drive to work. They ride their bicycle to work. Have you ever seen pictures of Amsterdam and all the bike racks? There's bike racks everywhere. You go to any country in Europe, there are bike racks everywhere. There are motor scooters. There are motorcycles. Not only in Europe, even in Southeast Asia. It's a necessity. It won't work here. It's like asking people now, you know, look what happened. First we had downtown areas. Then they created shopping malls. It was more convenient for the Americans and the culture. They destroyed virtually every shopping mall, or most of them, except in areas where there's nothing else around. And now we've got Amazon destroying shopping malls because America is a country of convenience. So instead of going to France, I'm going to give you a tip, because I know you'll probably be watching this program when you come back, if you come back.
He might be watching it right now.
Might be watching it right now on live stream. Jaisal, I'm going to give you a tip. You want to make Fall River better? Jump in your car, drive 2.5 to 2 hours and 45 minutes north to Portland, Maine. A community that's a small to medium-sized city and was just voted the best small city in the United States. Now, I'm very familiar with Portland. My father was born and brought up in Augusta. And I still go to Maine every summer. And I go to what Marc Monroe talked, Old Orchard Beach, and I go to Portland a lot.
And you don't bring me any lobster.
I will this year. No, you never ask. But, and besides that, I'd probably eat it on the way home.
I was going to say you'd eat it on the way home.
But Portland had a renaissance. Portland was it's a place where, it's the largest city in southern Maine, and it was okay, but it was just okay. But they spent a lot of money improving the seaport area, improving the community as a whole. Now you walk down to that seaport area, it's beautiful. They have all kinds of nice little restaurants and shops. Tourism, we're not going to get that here because we're not on the rocky coast of Maine. But I mean, look at the investment in the city. Invest in training people to get jobs. Invest in creating partnerships with business and apprenticeship. Do something to really improve the city. Not this crap. What are we going to have? Empty buses, empty trains. We're going to have. We're going to go over there to worry about a transportation system in a city that has a growth rate of 0.1, 0.1%, and has been losing population steadily throughout the past 20 years. And the only reason the population isn't down to virtually half of what it is because of the influx of people to go into the housing, subsidized housing, and we import other people here, none of whom, for the most part, have jobs. So you want to fix Fall River? Don't go to Paris. Take a ride up to Portland, Maine, and open your eyes.
Problem is he doesn't have a car. He only has a city vehicle.
Well, he can drive it up there anyway.
which, by the way,
you're not supposed to use.
he's touting his friends around in that, which could be a violation because it opens us up to liability. But that's another story.
Yeah.
So while Mayor Correa is in France, Council President Cliff Ponte's the mayor.
Yes.
Maybe he should make some changes before the mayor gets back here.
Well, what did Marc say about that? He said, "Oh, he says he's the mayor, and at least he's a real estate guy. Maybe he won't sell the rail trail to somebody who wants to use it for
Parking.
no, I think what the heck did he said, like hazardous materials dump or something like that. But again, you have to kind of be satirical about this thing in order to stop from crying, because I've never seen anything, and it's the total disregard, because perception is reality, and even if what he was doing there wasn't a blatant political trip, a politician dunking his head deeper into a trough to now find a way to get to Paris, the city of lights, on somebody else's dime. But you say to yourself, what is your level of consideration for the people of Fall River?
None.
When you do things like this, when you stand up and talk about somebody being able to pay their bills, and you give somebody a $20,000 pay raise, it's a part-time employee. And by the way, if he's a full-time employee, please correct me. Please correct me. If you're telling me he's putting in more than 20 hours a week on an average, he's violating the law. Because if he is a full-time employee, please disclose that to me so I can file a complaint with his retirement system. Because he's not supposed to do it. And he's a judge, and he knows that. And he's a lawyer, and he knows that.
But that's why he doesn't have time to do it, because he's a part-time employee.
Well, but that's the best-kept secret in the city of Fall River. Is that he's a part-time employee. You never hear that reference very often. You never hear, will part-time corporation counsel...
Yeah, I know.
Attorney Macy, come to the floor, please. Will a guy who's restricted by law to only work an average of 20 hours a week, otherwise he has to begin...
The thing I find amazing, though, is the fact that Joe Macy was appointed by Sam Sutter.
Yeah.
Jaisal Correa called out Sam Sutter for appointing Joe Macy, and then after he was elected, he kept Joe Macy. Talk about talking out of both sides of your face at every
And
spin.
gave him a pay raise.
That's right, and gave him a pay raise on top of it.
And gave him a pay raise. I mean, and that's the thing. And a pay raise without... most of the time for other people, like the poor people, as Marc says, we're the poor people. You don't get a pay raise for basically doing less and farming out your work. You get a pay raise when you have your hours extended, you work, you're working, you're getting new things to do. They expand your job description where you're gonna take on more responsibility. Those are the reasons you get a minimal pay raise in the real world. Real people get that. Normally, they try to make you work. They try to make you work longer and harder for less, not more. But as we said, politics is politics, and like a friend of mine once said, is a double standard. You lie to the government, it's a felony. They lie to you, it's politics. And not telling the full truth is a
part of
lie.
business.
It's a lie. And the fact is, let us all remember that Joe Macy is a part-time employee, or supposed to be.
Supposed to be, exactly.
I mean, I have to basically say that he's an attorney. He knows what his responsibilities are under the law as a retiree, and I am going to have to assume, as much as we all know what assume means, that he's complying with the law. Therefore, he is a part-time employee making a six-figure salary and just got a $20,000 pay raise. So don't you wish you lived in his world?
I'd love to live in his world. Hey, Brighton Point was chosen as the wind turbine foundation factory. They're going to make them there. Aren't we redeveloping our waterfront? Yep. I didn't realize that, that redevelopment included Somerset. And that's only if only if Bay State Wind receives Massachusetts contract for offshore wind. So they're already planning to use Brighton Point Power Plant's land as the foundation factory for offshore wind, but that's only if they get the contract. Yet we're trying to redevelop our side of the river so people can use it for boating and recreation and everything else. I think is a lie.
Oh yeah, because I'll tell you one thing. If I had a boat, I would not go boating in Newport when I could boat in the Taunton River.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
I would definitely come to Fall River.
Pollution, three-eyed fish.
Toilet paper floating to the top. It's like
torn river codfish.
That's like scallops wrapped in bacon. You can have you can have little necks wrapped in toilet paper.
Or something else.
Something else, yeah. Oh, you got to hit this one here. Sheriff Hodson, quote, people dying almost every day at the hands of illegals. Did you know?
Oh, yeah, I've got that one here as well.
He likes to travel to the nation's capital.
Yep, so. And he was speaking about it because California just passed, I think it was Article 54, or Proposition 54, which said that California is a sanctuary state. All law enforcement agencies cannot cooperate with each other, especially when it's to come after illegal aliens.
I mean, look, this whole thing of these states, of course, California, the land of, movie stars. And,
the land of libtards.
Yeah. But, what disturbs me is how the entire society has evolved to the point where you ignore the government. Last time I checked, the federal government was in charge.
Yeah, well, according to this...
I know they try to maintain some state autonomy, but when you're violating federal laws, something should happen. And these states, in cities and towns, just arbitrarily instructing, and I'm not even sure of the legality, but as I said, poor people can't fight that. I wish I was a billionaire. Because I don't know what the legality is to instruct law enforcement to not enforce laws. Because I know when you get sworn in, you don't only get sworn in to abide by the law of the community and the state you're in, but you're there to uphold the Constitution and federal law, because obviously that's the highest level of law. There are some laws that are discretionary, but these laws are not. To tell a law enforcement agency that they're prohibited from sharing information so another agency can enforce a law, to me, it just isn't right. It just doesn't make any sense, except in a society that's become kind of hedonistic the way Rome was before it collapsed. And I can see, you can see what's happening in this country, and it's becoming more and more fragmented. The melting pot has long cracked. We're no longer a melting pot. Political parties are actually engaged in creating more divisions between groups because it's politically expedient for them, but it's not good for the country. As Theodore Roosevelt said, there's no such thing as a hyphenated American. Some of the best Americans I ever met were naturalized Americans. But you're either an American or you're not an American. And that's the attitude you have to have a better country. We're united on behalf of the country. We don't, but yet when we look at every political campaign, they separate all these voting groups to try to pander to them. Not a good thing. And if that doesn't get you angry, remember, Jazel, if you're watching, have a croissant for me.
And bring me back a few baguettes and a nice bottle of wine. Hey, have a great weekend, everyone, and remember, stay angry.